Welcome to the webinar. So here we have Greig Smith travels together with Indigo Expeditions, and we are talking all things Guatemala. So with me from Indigo Expeditions is Rowland Griffin. Welcome, Rowland.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm all good, and we're going to be talking about your exciting adventure to Guatemala. So without further ado, let's dive straight in, shall we?
Absolutely. So during this webinar, we're going to be exploring and discovering the diversity of Guatemala's landscapes and the amazing wildlife that's found in this incredible country. But before we get there, I guess we should kind of introduce ourselves.
Tell people who
Who are we?
Right. So that's me on the left. That's Rowland on the right, and there we are in our element, safe to say. So what we do, my name's Paul Greig Smith, founder of Greig Smith Travels, the Personal Development Essentials podcast, and also the Growth Mindset Movement. And what we do is we run environmentally sustainable eco tours, and we partner up and collaborate with biologists, conservationists all around the world, promoting high quality eco tours. And Rowland is a very good friend. And we also collaborate together, and we've worked together in the past. And Rowland, I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. So I'm Rowland from Indigo Expeditions. What we do is connect people with nature by getting them out into the wilds of Guatemala. We've been working out here for the last 7 years, working on conservation projects such as Morlett's crocodile up in Laguna del Tigre National Park, and with critically endangered amphibians up in the cloud forests, and also recently started working with sea turtles down on the Pacific coast. And I think this tour is a very different thing for us. We've always concentrated on research in the past, but there are many people who want to get out to places and experience an introduction to the wildlife of a given country. And that's something that we wanted to open up to people, because Guatemala is such a diverse country, as you'll see. You can be within cloud forest high up in the mountains, and within 2 hours you can be in a desert. And I think that's a massively unique situation to have in a country, and I'm really excited to share that with people.
Fantastic. And so why exactly Guatemala, Rowland?
Well, it's a country that got very close to my heart the first time that I came here back in 2012. I fell in love with it immediately, and it's this amazing combination of things. It's diverse on every level. It's diverse in its habitats, everything, like we say, from desert to cloud forest, lowland rainforest, coastal plains, volcanoes. It's just everywhere you look, it's different. Combined with that, the wildlife of the country is equally diverse. So where we're positioned in Central America, you're kind of on the southern limit of all of the Northern American species, and you're on the northern limit of a lot of the South American species. That, combined with the diversity of habitats, also means there's lots of endemism. So there's lots of species within Guatemala that are found nowhere else in the world. So the overall community of species in Guatemala is completely unique.
Fantastic. So endemism for a range of species. It's good for whether you're a birder or a herper, all kinds of wildlife.
Absolutely. It's not, the reptile amphibian species are incredible. A lot of the endemism for the country is within the group of amphibians, particularly within frogs and salamanders. Up in the highlands, there's so many species that are found maybe in one or two mountain ranges and nowhere else in the world. But the birds are spectacular as well, and everything from Guatemala's national bird, the resplendent quetzal that you see in this photo, with this
Beautiful.
magnificent plumage and kind of almost metallic green mohawk on the top of its head, and then the males have these huge long tail feathers during the breeding season, all the way through to endemic hummingbirds. The number of hummingbirds here is incredible. Horned guans, the list just goes on and on. The mammals as well are spectacular. When you get up into the north of the country, the Maya Biosphere Reserve is one of the few places in Central America where you can see all 5 big cats that are found in Central America.
Wow. Do you know those off by heart? So we've got what, jaguar?
So jaguar is the obvious one. There's puma, jaguarundi, which is a small brown blackish cat, the ocelot, and the margay.
Wow.
And I've been privileged to either actually see them or see signs of them. So I haven't seen ocelot in the wild, but I've heard them and I've seen their tracks. I haven't seen puma, but I have heard them outside my bedroom door when I was in Laguna del Tigre.
Wow,
which was quite incredible. And I have been fortunate enough to encounter jaguar, which is just amazing.
Fantastic. So on this tour that we are cooperating with together, what can people expect? I'm a big fan of things like palm pit vipers and so on. I assume you've got plenty of them there?
Yes, absolutely. So there's 5 species of palm pit viper in Guatemala, and we will be going to locations where a few of those species are found. So the first stop, having arrived in Guatemala City, we will head up into the cloud forests of Baja Verapaz to the Biotopo del Quetzal, named after the national bird, which is one of the strongholds for this pit viper that you see here, which is I guess one of the holy grails for Guatemala. It's called the yellow blotched palm pit viper, and they are stunningly gorgeous. The photos just do not do them justice. You get these beautiful blue tints to some of the green scales and some of the black scales, and that just comes out in the light in just such an amazing way. So these guys are found mostly in Guatemala. There's a couple of locations in Chiapas, Mexico, but just over the border from Guatemala. So to all intents and purposes, as currently understood, they are endemic to Guatemala. And the Biotopo is one of the strongholds for these guys. Do
you see them fairly regularly, or?
Yeah, we were at a location just down the road from where this tour is going, and we saw 20 in the period of a few months, maybe 3 or 4 a night.
Wow.
So yeah, they are commonly found, and we'll be going at a time of year where the rains are still happening. There's lots of frog activity, and these guys feed on frogs and lizards mostly. So they're active during the time that we're going to be out there. And I know a few spots at the locations we're going to be going where you are almost guaranteed to see these species.
Fantastic. And what species have we got on the left? That
is Hartweg's spike thumb frog. So this is a critically endangered frog, only found in Guatemala. They're quite a sizable tree frog, probably getting to about almost 10 centimeters in length. They're really big. So they're called spike thumb frogs because the males have protrusions on their thumbs, little spikes. And we think they use them during mating. So a lot of frogs have like rough patches on their thumbs that they use to hold on to the females while they're mating. But it also seems with spike thumb frogs that the males use them to fight other males for the right for a spot to call from or to mate with other with females. So these are a really endangered species. the spike thumb frogs as a whole are one of the most endangered groups of tree frogs in Central America, and they are declining because of loss of habitat mainly, and also because of disease. So the link between these frogs and the pit vipers is really close, because obviously the pit vipers are feeding on the frogs, and if the frogs start disappearing, then a few years later, maybe 10 years later, you start to see declines in the snakes as well. So
and were those frogs hit by, you mentioned disease, were they hit by the chytrid fungus?
Yeah, they were really hit by chytrid fungus. It was in the early 90s that it hit Guatemala, and there was a massive decline in a lot of species. What's interesting from talking with colleagues of mine, and also observations that I've made in the field, is the spike thumb frogs seem to have changed their whole breeding cycle in the last 5 years. So normally they would, like most frogs, start breeding with the onset of the rains, which is around June traditionally. And then a few months later, you'd start seeing the tadpoles appear and everything else. And what we're finding is that when we go into the field to do our research around June, we're already finding young metamorphs. So they've already gone through the tadpole stage, which means that they have bred 3 months prior to that, which is around February, March time. And
do you think there's some kind of link? Is that some kind of adaptation to the disease, or just?
Yes, I think it's an adaptation to the disease, because the disease is more prevalent when it's raining, because it thrives in wetter environments. So there's quite a distinct dry season in Guatemala, even up in the cloud forests. So with that, you have less disease in the environment, and the chytrid fungus affects the keratin. There's areas on frogs that have keratin. So like the toe pads on the adults and the drinking patch down on the belly are the places that they affect adults. In tadpoles, it's the mouth parts. So the tadpoles don't develop properly if they get chytrid, because they can't eat. So it seems like, anecdotally at least, that the frogs have shifted their breeding season so that the tadpoles are in the environment when chytrid is not prevalent, so that they can at least get out of the tadpole stage and metamorph into froglets. And then additionally, what we're finding with the metamorphs is they're actually sitting out and basking in the sun, which is really unusual for a tiny little frog that's probably a centimetre long. And what we believe they're doing there is they're getting their external body temperature up as high as they can and into the lethal zone for chytrid. So they're actually killing the fungus off by basking out in the open.
Wow.
It's really amazing to see how these species are relatively quickly adapting their whole life cycle to cope with the disease.
Wow, that is incredible. So a chance to see, if people are lucky, they'll get to see the frogs, and but more than likely a chance to see those palm pit vipers. So where's next that we're going to be taking people?
So after the cloud forest, we're going to head down the mountains into the driest area in Central America, which is the Motagua Valley. So it's close to the Honduran border. And it's this, I remember the first time that I went there, it feels and looks like Arizona, but you're in a tropical country. It's absolutely bizarre. So it's really dry and sandy. It's very, very hot. The forests are quite, they're short, they're stubby forests, and a lot of the trees are very spiky and thorny. So it's a thorn scrub forest, which happens to be one of the most endangered habitats in the world, full of cactus and ground bromeliads that are related to pineapple. And it's incredible. It's stuck between two mountain ranges, so it's in the rain shadows of two mountain ranges. So it only receives I think it's something like 50 centimeters of rain a year or something like that. It's really dry. But it's also, because it's this unique habitat, it has unique species. So the two lizards that you see here are both endemic to the Motagua Valley. They are not found anywhere else in the world.
So it looks like we've got a beaded lizard on the left, and what's that on the right?
So on the right is the Guatemalan black-tailed iguana. So it's a relative of the Tenosaurus similis, the black spiky tail iguana. And these two species are, I mean, they're both very endangered. There's probably between 500 and 1,000 individuals of each species in the wild at the moment. Very, very rare. And they are, again, they're interlinked. And there's between the two of them and a species of cactus, a species of Opuntia, they form this really interesting triangle relationship. So the iguanas feed on the fruit of the cactus, which is also endemic, and they disperse the seeds. They're one of the main dispersers. The beaded lizards feed primarily on eggs, and one of their big sources of food are the eggs of the iguana.
Got you.
So between them, it's this really interesting ecological relationship between those three species. And we'll be going to a research facility out in the Motagua Valley, and we'll be introduced to the amazing conservation work that they're doing there with captive breeding of both species and radio tracking of both species as well.
Wow. So it's literally diving straight in. You're taking people from the cloud forest. We've got, endangered frogs and beautiful palm pit vipers, and then heading straight to, a complete kind of change in environment. That's awesome. So all on one trip as well. There is more to come as well. So.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great way to really bring home the diversity that we've been talking about in Guatemala. Like just going from somewhere that's high up in the mountains, wet all the time, to somewhere that is basically dry all the time. You can't get much further apart. And the Motagua Valley also has amazing birds. There's birds that are endemic to the Motagua Valley. There's a specialist cuckoo that is only found in that area. There's, even in this dry environment, there's amphibians that are endemic to the Motagua Valley. So there's a species of frog that is only found, or only known at least, from about 3 small streams in this area. Which is really incredible. So it's going to be great to be down there and see just how diverse Guatemala can be.
No, that sounds awesome. And so in the spirit of mixing things up even more, you're going straight from there and then checking out some rainforest.
Absolutely. So from the Motagua Valley, we carry on down to the end of that valley, which goes into the Caribbean. And that area is the only place in Guatemala that has proper tropical rainforest. So there's a lot of lowland rainforest in Guatemala, but most of it is too dry to be classed as full rainforest. The area down on the Caribbean coast it gets enough rain for it to be rainforest. There's over 3 meters of rain a year. And we're going to be on the slopes of a reserve called Cerro San Gil, which is this huge mountain that comes out of nowhere. It's not part of a mountain range or anything else like that. It's just there on its own, covered in rainforest, and it's one of the best places to go looking for, especially for reptiles and amphibians in Guatemala. Everything from the most notorious snake, I guess, in Central America, the fer lance, through to these really interesting lizards that are called night lizards. This is the yellow-spotted night lizard. They're a very prehistoric looking animal, and I really love them. They're one of the most interesting things about them is that in certain parts of their range, the populations are made up entirely of females. and they reproduce by parthenogenesis. So they're cloning themselves, which is a really unusual thing to have a whole population like that. So these are little ground-dwelling lizards, live in burrows during the day, come out of those to hunt, and you quite often find them hunting up the trunks of trees.
Nice. And what other kind of species can we expect to find in the rainforest there?
So everything from green iguanas, which are, they're a classic, red-eyed tree frogs, another classic of Central America, through to some more unusual species. So there are these I've never seen these in the wild yet, and I'm really excited because I really want to see them. They're small green iguanid lizards called cask-headed iguanas.
Okay.
And they have these really weird, almost like triceratops protrusions on the back of their heads, like these big shields. So they're probably about 15 centimeters long. They specialize in living on vegetation overhanging water. So we might have to get a bit wet to find those. But the real special species of this area is something called the annulated tree boa, which has quite a large range throughout Central America, but it's a disjunct distribution. So there's pockets of the species from Panama up to Guatemala, which is the most northernmost population, and it's one of the rarest snakes in Guatemala, and it's found around this area that we're going to be in. So that's something that we're really going to be on the lookout for, because records of that species in Guatemala are really important, because we know very little about its ecology here.
Wow.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it. So you really kind of mean what you say in terms of biodiversity. There's some awesome sounding species.
Absolutely. I mean, we've chosen the locations of this tour very carefully so that we can give people not just the biggest range of species to see, but also the biggest range of habitats and landscapes as well. And going back to one of your earlier comments, this is also a really good place to see another classic in Central America, which is the eyelash pit viper.
One of my favorites.
They are for a lot of people, absolutely, yeah. So they are found in this area fairly regularly. So again, yeah, there's just this huge range of species, and because we're on the coast, the bird life is really diverse as well. So you've got everything from neotropical cormorants, frigate birds, keel-billed toucans, a huge number of
Did you say kill-bill toucans?
Keel-billed toucans. So like the keel of a boat.
Got you. I'm just
rather than kill-billed. So they're magnificent birds. The hummingbirds again are spectacular down here.
Fantastic. Okay, so where's next?
So from there we fly back up to the city, to the middle of the country, and we head up into the mountains to a city called Antigua, which used to be the old capital city of the country. And this is a magnificent colonial city. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's full of cobbled streets, really pretty buildings. It's surrounded by volcanoes. So that as you can see in the photo underneath that arch, that's the volcano called Agua, which is a dormant volcano. Absolutely spectacular. That everywhere you look, you're kind of dominated by these big mountains and volcanoes that are covered in forest. It also happens to be one of the big centers of coffee growing in Guatemala.
Wow. So what, you'll spend a couple of nights there? So
we spend 2 nights in Antigua, and that's a chance just to relax a little bit, soak up some of Guatemala's amazing culture. Antigua is, I think the statistic is that per capita, Antigua has more cafes and restaurants than any other town or city in the world.
Nice. So that fits very well after some hardcore herping, some hardcore field time and then you can get your coffee fix in Antigua. That sounds awesome.
Absolutely, and it's a great place to look at local weaving. So the textile industry in Guatemala is incredible. The women make these beautiful hand woven textile cloth that's just incredible. So you get a feel for that and do some souvenir shopping perhaps if you choose to. We're also going to be herping while and
I was going to say, is there still
while
a
we're
chance
there.
to do some herping? Are you going to go up the volcano? Is that possible? Or?
We're probably not going to go up the volcano because it depends on the situation with some of the volcanoes, whether we can do that or not. But we are going to be visiting some cloud forest and some pre-montane forest just on the outskirts of town, which again are fantastic for bird life. It's one of the few places where you can see the rufous-breasted hummingbird. You also can find the wine-throated hummingbird, which is a really small hummingbird, but it has these metallic purple feathers on its throat that it kind of puts out into this huge fan. It's absolutely spectacular, and there are some really nice spots where we're going where we should hopefully be able to see them and be able to take some really nice photographs of those. In terms of reptiles and amphibians, it's a really good place to see yet another palm pit viper, the Guatemalan palm pit viper. Again, a species that I've never seen, so I'm really excited about that. It's a bright green, often with these really bright blue spots. Absolutely spectacular. And there's also hopefully a chance to see one of the arboreal alligator lizards as well.
Awesome. Right. And thereafter on to, how do we pronounce this?
So this is Lake Atitlán.
Okay.
Which is, it's supposedly, it's considered to be the most beautiful lake in the world.
So this is a volcano lake, am I right?
It is. It's actually a volcanic crater.
Wow.
That is surrounded by volcanoes still, some of which are active. And so it's high up in the mountains. It's the deepest lake in Central America, over 200 meters deep. And it's spectacular. And with the addition of, here you've got this diversity of habitats. So on the south side of the lake, there are quite lush pre-montane and cloud forests. Mm-hmm. And we'll be spending some time on the south. That's where we will be staying, on the south side of the lake, exploring those areas. But we're also going to take a boat ride across the lake to another town, again, where we can sample some of the local culture, visit some of the weavings and things like that. But also on the north side, it's very much drier habitat. So you get these, even within a small area in Guatemala, you can get some very different species, like this pink-headed warbler, which is quite a spectacular little thing.
Nice. So this is the final destination in the tour. And how many nights are here?
We're spending 2 nights here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
yes,
let's talk about when is it, how much is it, how can people find out more about this incredible trip?
Okay, so we're running this tour from the 4th to the 16th of September this year, which is a fantastic time to be looking for wildlife in Guatemala. And one of the reasons for that is it's towards the end of the rainy season. And traditionally in the middle of the rainy season, you get this dry period called the canicula. And then which is in August usually. And towards the end of August, it starts raining again, which means everything comes back to life after a little dry spell. That's one of the reasons that we've timed the tour to be then. So arrival in Guatemala City on the 4th of September, and then flying out of Guatemala City on the 16th of September.
Fantastic. And so this is a tour, in terms of who it's for, this is for serious wildlife enthusiasts, I mean, this isn't like many of your trips. It's not like a research trip where people are kind of out in the field taking measurements. This is for your this is showcasing the biodiversity of Guatemala. And so not just for herpers, but general serious wildlife enthusiasts.
Absolutely. It's open to anyone who has an interest and a passion for wildlife, and who wants to come and experience that. And what we've tried to put together is a tour that it still has that conservation element. So as much as possible, we're visiting active conservation projects so that people can see what amazing work is being done in Guatemala to conserve and protect the biodiversity of this amazing country.
Fantastic. And so the trip is what? That's £2,800 per person?
Per person. And that is an early bird offer that is available. I was
going to say, that seems like because usually that's a lot more expensive, isn't it?
Yes, it is a decent saving. It's a couple of £100 saving that is available until the 24th of April.
And in terms of next steps to secure a spot on this trip, how do people go about that?
So people can hop onto the website, and there's a booking form there. If you're ready to just commit and book on, that's great. But if you'd like to arrange a call with me to talk through the tour in any more details or answer any of your questions, then feel free to ping me an email on roland@explorewithindigo.com, and we can get that arranged for you.
Fantastic. And I tell you, I just like to add, I know in these uncertain times, a lot of people might be thinking, I'm not sure if I should book and all this kind of stuff, what with Corona and all that kind of stuff. So I understand you're being really flexible with this as well. So people just have to put down a low deposit to get the saving there, to get the discount. But in the event of, having to move the trip, you're allowing really kind of flexible terms if people have to reschedule and travel again. Is that right?
That's right. So to secure your place and take advantage of that low price, we're just asking for a £200 deposit. In the event that the tour had to be rescheduled or anything, we're happy to reschedule. If you couldn't make those dates, then you would get a full 100% refund, because your money will be protected for you.
And obviously, because this is a collaboration between Greig Smith Travels and Indigo Expeditions, we do have 100% financial protection through our membership to the Travel Trust Association there. But definitely, it's a great idea to lock in your discount as soon as possible. So definitely give Rowland an email just to arrange a call with him. As you can probably, as you've surmised, Rowland really knows his stuff, and I'm always jealous whenever I see his wonderful Facebook posts of what he gets up to in Guatemala. So if you've ever wanted to get out to Guatemala, give Rowland a call. I highly recommend that. Is there anything else you want to say to people, Rowland, before we wrap up?
I think, I'm really just so happy to be able to give people the opportunity to come out and experience this amazing country. It's a country that has really got into my heart, and I just really love sharing it with people. So, if you have ever thought about it, or if you're not too sure, or whatever, just get hold of us, and we'll talk to you about the amazingness of Guatemala.
Fantastic. And I can certainly say Rowland really knows what he's doing. He's doing some marvelous conservation work out in Guatemala. And obviously, we're both very keen on advocating environmentally responsible tourism such as this, and supporting, the work that you're doing, and also the work of, the local eco lodges and research stations that people will be staying with. And for me as well, I think there's no better way than inspiring people about wildlife and conservation than trips such as this. So if you're on the fence or anything like that, just, drop Rowland a line, give him a call, have a chat with him. And I can assure you this will be one of the best things you can do with your life. So So brilliant. And I just want to thank you for your time today, Rowland. And
It's my pleasure.
Just wanted to reassure people, get in touch with Rowland, make sure you lock in that lower rate there, and see whatever you can do to get out on one of his trips. This will be the trip of a lifetime. So thank you very much for that, Rowland. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. What we will do now is, if there's any questions, we will field questions now, just in the messages there. But otherwise, we'll wrap up the actual presentation. But now we'll turn to the questions. So if you've got any questions, why don't you fire them away now?